Leopards trying to figure out a way to get a first down without their best player here. Locks might throw here. It's intercepted. Kalkstein at the 20. Well, that's probably the one thing that the Leopards could not allow to happen.
Live from our Seton Hill University studios, this is Westmoreland on the Gridiron on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Here's your host, Sean Meyers.
And we welcome you into Westmoreland on the Gridiron, Wednesday night, 7 p.m. right here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. I'm Sean Meyers. That's Dan Flickinger. Thanks so much for joining us once again. And man, this is a great show because for the majority of our Westmoreland County teams, they have now begun their conference slate here in 2022. We got a lot to talk about with all of the games from week 3, the top performers. We've got the plays of the week segment that everyone always awaits anxiously. And we've got a couple of key interviews, both from Franklin Regional, the head coach, Lance Getsy, and their star kicker. You don't always say that, Joey Bain, who had a terrific performance. Why are we so focused on Franklin Regional? Well, Dan, no doubt this was the biggest win in all of Westmoreland County this past week. The Panthers shock the Gateway Gators 16-7. Many thought that Gateway would be the best team in 5A this season. Some thought they could be the best team in the entire state of Pennsylvania in 5A. The ending, it has not been written for the Gators, but so far they were the upset victim of the Panthers. Franklin Regional, I think it's the biggest win this program's had in at least half a decade.
It's cataclysmic. I mean, Lance Getsy gets in there, wants to turn Franklin Regional into what it was in the past, under Greg Botta when they were a powerhouse for a long period of time. But of course, over the last handful of years, maybe a few years longer than that, they've been okay, but they're not playing the Franklin Regional Panther football they want to get back to. How can you not say this was a gigantic building block, a gigantic confidence maker in Franklin Regional? And now what does this do to this conference, Sean? I mean, it's like wide open right now with Hempfield, with Franklin Regional. You got Penn Trafford, and of course, Gateway still in the mix. I mean, this upset does a lot of things, and for high school football fans, unless you live in Monroeville, it's pretty exciting to see Franklin Regional maybe taking a step forward here, getting back to where they were. Hempfield having a great season. But what a performance by the Panthers after losing the way that they did to them last year and the last few years. That has to wear on you mentally. I mean, these kids were obviously, most of them obviously were involved in the game last year. And to be able to mentally come back, play at home, and get such a big upset win and play the way they did defensively, man, that's going to go a long way for Franklin Regional and Lance Getsy, what he wants them to get to.
Yeah, and there's a lot of factors here that I want to touch on. First off, we're going to hear from Lance Getsy and Joey Bain, so we're going to be really in-depth with this game, and rightfully so. But to me, one of the most interesting things is this came just a few weeks after they suffered a heartbreaking loss. Because remember, they lost in double overtime to Greater Latrobe, a game where it looked like for a while they might actually pull off another frantic comeback against the Wildcats. And yet that wasn't something that lingered because the team bounced back. They blew out Connellsville. Yeah, it's a Falcons team that struggled, but second consecutive week that they've played some great football. So I think it shows that this team's a resilient one. And that could go a long way because keep in mind, you talked about what does it do for this conference. Only 2 teams are guaranteed to get playoff spots. And then there's the potential for a third via the wild card. So everyone, I'll speak for myself, Franklin Regional, probably not in that top 2, right? You're thinking it's going to be Penn Trafford, Gateway. And then it's like, well, maybe they can get a wild card spot. Maybe Hempfield area could get a wild card spot. Now you're looking Gateway sort of behind the 8 ball, and Franklin Regional is in a driver's seat position. So if they take care of business the rest of the way, even if they were to lose to Penn Trafford, they go and win the other games, then they're in. So this is a massive, massive win, and I think one that has some juice flowing now back in Murraysville. So again, for Coach Getsy, this is clearly his biggest win during his time there.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. And again, I mean, nothing is more important sometimes than confidence. Mentally, these kids believe now that they can go out and beat anybody if they beat Gateway. Now, does that show that the Gateway maybe isn't as strong as people thought that they were coming into the season. I mean, that's possible, but you can't take anything away from Franklin Regional again to come back mentally. And don't forget that, we certainly send our prayers out to Logan Donnelly, who suffered a serious injury for Franklin Regional in the second quarter. And Sean, when you see a teammate go out like that, I think it could go one of two ways. One, you could just, feel terrible and maybe let that linger through halftime and go out in the second half and maybe not play well, or you could play inspired for him. And I think that the players and Coach Getsy said after the game that that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to play for him in the second half. They hung up his jersey, and that's exactly what they did. So they played inspired football, for Logan Donnelly, who, again, our thoughts are with him. But just, again, the way that they played defensively. And I also thought it was interesting, just to kind of get into more of the game, what was going on with Brad Birch. He didn't start the game at quarterback. The original starting quarterback that replaced Birch for the game got injured. Birch comes into the game, throws a touchdown pass, comes back out of the game in the first half, and then he played the majority of the second half. And Franklin Regional really was able to really limit what he was able to do. Obviously, I guess he was playing injured. I know that Don Hall didn't talk to reporters after the game, so we're just left to speculate that apparently he was playing injured, and maybe they wanted to see how things would go early against Franklin. And Franklin was like, hey, we're for real. So then they had to put Birch into the game, and they were still able to kind of shut him down. Again, maybe he is playing with an injury, but the Franklin Regional defense, again, was very, very impressive. And then when you have a young player, a young man, and Joey Bain that came in and did the job that he did in such a big game to kick 3 field goals plus an extra point, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and so add it up, 3 field goals and an extra point, that's 10 points. They won by 9. So
there you go.
A kicker can be a difference in a game, even if it is a little bit more than just a 2 or 3 point game. So, yeah, he did a great job. Really just a great win for Franklin Regional. Now, the real test is, can they continue to play at that level? That will be something that we'll have to see over the weeks to come. We'll look at what's next with the week 4 preview for them as well. They'll have another good test upcoming this week. But for now, Franklin Regional certainly should be celebrating the big, big victory. While we talk about the defense for the Panthers, how about the defense for Penn Trafford as they force a late turnover and then get a subsequent score in the final minute plus to edge Bell Vernon area 14-13. That was a game that, no playoff implications on the line, but a big time feel to it because it was a great game last year. Another one that's 2 of the best teams in all of Westmoreland. So the Warriors win 14-13. Flick, you and I were there. It really felt like right out the gate, wow, this Bell Vernon team's fired up. They scored on their second play of the game. They had a lead for most of the second half as well after Penn Trafford tied it, but they just could not close it out. And really, you think back to that massive mistake. They had the football under 2 minutes left. They had the 13-7 lead, but they didn't have their best player available. Quentin Martin, who had scored that early touchdown, was sidelined with some ailment. I'm not exactly sure what it was, but he tried to play through it, ultimately couldn't. They didn't have him on that drive. So instead of 3 consecutive runs, which you would typically see, they decide to maybe switch it up a little bit, try to fool the defense or catch them off guard on third down. Interception, Warriors take over, they score. I guess if you're Matt Humbert, you can think back to last year and say, Penn Trafford went through this. They had some tough losses back-to-back, rebounded and won a championship, but that has to sting for the Leopards. And on the other side, for Penn Trafford, they have to feel like maybe they can build off of this because they got second life and they certainly took advantage.
Yeah, Sean, I mean, there's definitely a lot of respect between Matt Humbert and John Ruane, both of those guys wanting to win a non-conference game the worst way possible just because they know the quality of opponent that they're playing. And yeah, down the line, I guess you're talking about playoff seeding. It could benefit you to win a big out of classification game, especially if you're Penn Trafford going a couple of classifications up. But Penn Trafford was coming in with a little bit of a chip on its shoulder. And how about Bell Vernon throwing the first punch as Quentin Martin takes it for a touchdown? But you look at the last sequence there of the game, and you talked about it, Sean, just Penn Trafford trying to hold Bell Vernon to get another shot at it. And one thing that I thought was interesting, and I don't know that John Ruane had the foresight to do this purposely, but I don't know how much time there was left exactly, maybe 2 minutes or so or something like that when Bell Vernon got the football. And Penn Trafford had 2 timeouts left, something they struggled with during the game. They took some timeouts offensively, not to stop the clock, but because we
saw him very furious a few times.
Yeah, John was not happy a few times because of that. They had to burn timeouts because of miscommunication on offense, whatever it was. So they took a timeout earlier in the half. So Bell Vernon gets the ball. They're up with 2 minutes remaining around there, and they run the first play. Now, remember, PT has 2 timeouts left. Penn Trafford doesn't call a timeout on that first play that was run, and it was a running play, so the clock's moving. But they elected, we're going to take a timeout after second down, and then a timeout after third down, and then we'll get the ball back. But they didn't take a timeout after first down. So they take a timeout after second down, and now it's third down, and PT has 1 timeout remaining. So you wonder if that kind of forced Matt Humbert to decide to throw the ball there, knowing that, hey, if we run the ball and they stop us, they're going to call a timeout, and PT is going to get the ball back. If they take a timeout on first down, then second down, and then they have none remaining going into that third down play, maybe Matt decides to run the football knowing the clock's going to continue to move. Now, obviously, there's some give and take there because with PT calling the timeout after the first down play, it did stop the clock. So you have some give and take there, whether you take it first after the first down play or the third down play. So hope that's not too confusing, but I thought it was interesting to think that way. Like, you're going into that third down call and Bell Vernon decides to throw the ball instead of run the ball. If PT didn't have a timeout left, you think they would have maybe ran the ball there. Either way, they didn't. And, Matt's a very aggressive coach. He wanted to win the game right there, maybe give some confidence to his younger quarterback, a kid that's not extremely experienced, obviously a first-year starter. He wanted to give that confidence to him that they can go out and win the game. And, it didn't happen. I don't. Some people will kind of judge the call either way, but how aggressive he is, and Bell Vernon just didn't execute. Penn Trafford did, and Tommy Kalkstein with a huge interception.
Yeah, and the other thing is, then Penn Trafford still had to get a touchdown.
That's true too.
They only had to go 20 yards, but they were able to do that. Conlon Green had both touchdowns. But you go back to Quentin Martin not being there, and man, it has to be scary. Because last year, I think if he's out, and we saw him miss time, including against Thomas Jefferson, that you can then say, all right, we don't have him, but we know that Devin Whitlaw can take the game over sort of by himself. It does feel like this year they have some really good players, but he's the guy that has to be there for those clutch scenarios. And when he left the game, albeit briefly, they just weren't the same team. And I think maybe went a little outside of the comfort zone. Ultimately, it cost them. So hopefully he's back. I don't know the severity of the injury. It didn't seem like maybe it would be something long-term, but fingers crossed that he's back. If he plays every snap of that game healthy, I think they probably have a much better chance, probably do close it out, but we'll never know. Learning experience for both teams. And again, a really good one for our Westmoreland County fans and the Westmoreland Sports Network, because I think you could argue those 2 teams, they might be the top 2 in all of Westmoreland County over the past half decade or so. Jeanette, obviously, with its terrific success, but hasn't been as good. So great to see them. And we're looking forward to it next year and hopefully many years to come between those schools. Final thing here for our biggest takeaways. I was really impressed. The conference opening tests that Greater Latrobe and Burrell had, they didn't win the games, but man, they hung tough against some conference heavyweights. Greater Latrobe came up shy, 31-21. They lost at Thomas Jefferson. And then Burrell lost to Sarah Catholic 38-20. So Thomas Jefferson, we talk about Penn Trafford and Bell Vernon as year in and year out contenders. Thomas Jefferson, I think over the past 10, 15, 20 years, they might be number 1 in the entire WPIAL. So for Greater Latrobe to go on the road, and really it was a 1-score game all the way down until a late field goal by TJ in the 4th. The Wildcats, I thought, had a really, really good showing. They got Robbie Fulton unleashed again as he had a massive performance, nearly 200. And then Burrell, a team that basically everyone knows cannot throw the football. You figured if they, had any bad periods of time against Sarah Catholic, the game could get away. It really didn't. Yeah, they lost by 18, but they played close throughout. So really impressed by those 2 teams hanging tough.
100%. I mean, when you went into the season looking at that week for Latrobe, you're thinking, okay, maybe the Wildcats can really generate some momentum early in the year. We didn't know how good Hempfield was going to be. We thought if Latrobe, can beat Derry, a team that was winless last year, and then go out and beat Hempfield, and of course they'd have a battle against Franklin Regional, which they did. But you never thought that this game would, be close. You weren't sure at the very least. You weren't sure what was kind of going to happen in this game because of the fact that, as you mentioned, Sean, TJ's maybe the best program in the WPIL. And
Wisconsin commit on their line. So they're loaded. Some people think that this is one of the better versions of Thomas Jefferson recently, much better than a year ago, many people believe.
Exactly. And what does it say about Hempfield, the way that Hempfield was able to shut down Robbie Fulton, and then Fulton rips off a ton of yards against Thomas Jefferson. And really Latrobe had an opportunity late in the game to maybe come back and get the game tying touchdown, and a turnover unfortunately nullified that. But wow, I mean, you hope that these kids, after seeing that, they're that close to beating a powerhouse, or, coming close to tying the game late against TJ, you think that they'd have some confidence going forward now in conference play. And looking at Burrell as well, I mean, they have to be one of the top rushing teams in the WPIAL, led by Devin Beatty. And Mason Jones also had a good game for Burrell. He's a younger kid that I know Sean Liotta is very excited about. They rushed for over 300 yards. The problem is, the way that they were able to run the football was great, but if they go up against a big play offense and their defense lets up those big plays, it's hard for Burrell to make up yardage quickly because they run the football. They don't throw the football. So the big plays aren't necessarily there for them unless they can break some huge runs. And obviously against good teams, that's not always going to happen. So that's the only issue about their offense. Like defensively, they need to get great efforts. Offensively, they need to control the football, because I think Sarah Catholic got some big plays against them. And they also got a big fumble recovery for a touchdown, which was an important play in that game. But the same thing holds, I think, for Burrell. Those kids have to be confident that, they just went up against Sarah Catholic and were able to, to be tied at one point in the first half. And then I know things kind of got away from them in the second half, but I mean, they had a lot of success against Sarah Catholic.
Yeah, and keep in mind, for those who maybe haven't followed that closely, Sarah Catholic is the defending WPIAL champs in 2A. Right. So that is an absolutely loaded Eagles team that the Bucks went toe-to-toe with. And so you don't get moral victories necessarily. And I talk to Coach Prady every week, and he doesn't want to talk about it's a moral victory against Thomas Jefferson, but you can take a heck of a lot of positives. And I think the players, the mindset of a young player, hey, we just went against maybe the toughest team we'll face all season, and we were capable of playing with them. Maybe not the entire game. Maybe there was a 5-minute, 6-minute stint where we let it slip away, but the majority of the night we were toe-to-toe with one of the best teams, so we could be able to play against anyone. And that should be their mindset, whether you're a Wildcat or a Buccaneer right now, that it's probably not going to get much harder in terms of the level of competition. So I think these teams are well poised as this conference slate moves along. Well, that'll do it for our biggest takeaways, but we got plenty more to get to here tonight on Westmoreland on the Gridiron. We're going to run down all the scores from week 3, as well as the top performers, the always popular plays of the week, and we will double up on the Panthers interviews, Lance Getsy and Joey Bain of Franklin Regional, as well as a look ahead with the week 4 preview. That's upcoming as we continue right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Right now at Smale Kia, take $500 off any in-stock or incoming 2023 Kia Soul or Forte, or lease a 2023 Kia Forte LXS for just $295 a month. A fair price all the time. At Smale Kia, you never have to worry about the ugly 3. No sly market adjustments, no creepy addendum, no fancy surcharges. Avoid the ugly 3 and be free. Shop Smale Kia, where you never pay more than MSRP.
East Suburban Sports Medicine, Western Pennsylvania's #1 physical therapy practice, is now in Greensburg. Voted by Trib Live readers as the best of the best. Our new Greensburg clinic provides orthopedic, concussion, lymphedema, and pelvic health therapy. Conveniently located at 133 Donahoe Road, right next to Best Buy. East Suburban Sports Medicine, the best care anywhere, hands down. Call 412-856-8060 and schedule an appointment today.
And we roll along here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Sean Meyers, Dan Flickinger, each and every Wednesday, 7 p.m. You're home for the best talk of Westmoreland County high school football. We already looked at some of the big takeaways from the past week. We're also going to have plays of the week upcoming. We'll have interviews with Lance Getsy and Joey Bain and a week 4 preview. But now let's wrap up the rest of the week 3 scores. And so we mentioned some of these, but we had some good games both on video and audio on WSN. You can go back and check those out. We already talked about it. We'll continue to talk about it. Franklin Regional, 16-7 victory over Gateway. You can go back and watch that game. How about the York Cougars? They get their second consecutive win, 13-10 against Dairy Area. Tough one for the Trojans. They fall to 0-4. You can watch that one as well. Unfortunately, Flick, as your brother can attest, Trojans just not at full strength. Could have been a different outcome if they had their top dogs in uniform.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to take anything away from York. Our man Gavin Roebuck scores the game-winning touchdown. It was pretty cool. We love talking with that kid. But yeah, I mean, Derry was without Ahmad Ward, pretty good running back, right? Yeah, he out with an injury, and then a couple of kids had COVID as well. Blake Revore plus an offensive lineman. So it's a team that has more numbers this year in Derry, which is good. But that doesn't mean that equates to more experience. So their starting quarterback's out, one of their starting offensive linemen's out, and their starting running back is out. I mean, it's tough to win games like that, and they only lost 13-10. Gateway, Derry could. I'm not saying they're going to. Maybe they go winless this year, but they show a ton of improvement from last year, which is it's weird to kind of say that. Obviously, they have another opportunity for a win this week. So I'm not counting them out, certainly, of any games, but it's just weird to think that they could have the same record as last year, but there's been a lot of improvement, and the kids continue to have to try to believe.
Well, you can look at the scoring defense from a year ago as opposed to this year. I think 3 games already, especially this one when they allowed just 13 points, already were better than any games that they had defensively last year. I think, the fewest points they gave up last year was somewhere in the ballpark of 35 or so. Yeah. And they've already held 3 opponents under that, I believe, this year. So Trojans are on the right path. If you're the Cougars, you celebrate this one. You will not apologize for that win, certainly. They are now 2-2 overall. And of course, that's a big win in conference and in Westmoreland County as well. How about the Jeanette Jayhawks? 60-14. They knock off the Fraser Commodores. Jeanette gets its first win. You can go back and watch that one. That was a special one as well for the Jayhawks. Not only getting the first win for head coach Thomas Pallone, but I know you talked about it, Flick. All the legends that came back, the Hall of Fame, some of the former coaches who were there. So just all around a very special night at Jeanette.
Yeah, and Gerald Foster talked to the team before the game. I know they were really excited to have him. He's been a proud Jayhawk supporter since he played at Jeanette. He was also a D1 athlete. So it was really neat to have him kind of talk to the team. And talking with Tom Pallone, Sean, before the season, during the season, that's something that he wants to bring back in a big way. And I know it's kind of, an intangible thing, but I think at Jeanette it means something, and that is tradition. And a big reason for that is with some kids leaving, he wants to make sure like playing here means something. You should want to play for Jeanette. You should want to stay here. And I think that's what he's trying to ingrain into the kids right now. And I think on a Hall of Fame weekend, he's able to do that. And congratulations to him on his first win, hopefully of many.
And to his dad as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. I had a chance to talk with him briefly after the Steelers debacle.
Oh, yeah, let's not talk about that. Yeah, they say tradition never graduates. I think that's sort of the mantra for Jeanette and Coach Pallone. Other scores around Westmoreland County, you can go back and watch Penn Trafford's 14-13 win against Bell Vernon area. We already highlighted that. It was a thriller. Plum opens 5A Big East play with a 42-13 victory against Norwin. The Knights now 1-3. You can listen to that one as well as Hempfield area does it again. 48-7, knocking off Shaler. I don't want to spend too much time on this because we've talked a lot about the Spartans, but man, they continue to do it. 49-49. They let their foot off the gas. They scored just 48 this week.
I think there was honestly a missed extra. Well, I guess there was a missed extra point if you do the math. So they had a chance to have another 49-point output, and we'll talk about the Hempfield PT game, I guess, a little bit later on.
Yeah, that is, by the way, a pretty good Shaler team. So that's a very impressive win. Also, games in Westmoreland County from week 3. Hampton shuts out Kiski area 38-0. Cavaliers winless at 0-4. We talked about Thomas Jefferson's 31-21 victory against Greater Latrobe. Ligonier Valley gets another win as the Rams improve to 3-1. They knock off Apollo Ridge 28-14. That was their conference opener. Sarah Catholic, Al Spurl 38-20. First loss for the Buccaneers. Monessen explodes offensively 49-9 against Bentworth. The Greyhounds now 2-2. Greensburg-Salem wins the non-conference against Deer Lakes 28-14. Mount Pleasant area offensively does it again, 40-13, knocking off Valley in the Battle of the Vikings. Mount Pleasant now 3-1. Valley drops to 0-4. Southmoreland knocks off Knock 33-24 as the Scotties 2-2. This was a good one. Washington High 55, Greensburg Central Catholic 27. Centurion sitting at 2-2, but you still believe when you look at that team that they have the offensive firepower to go toe-to-toe with anyone. They just happen to run into a really good Wash High team. But ultimately, I think, can the defense play well enough? Because they have those skill guys. Tyree Turner had another big performance.
Yeah, 4 touchdowns for Tyree in that game. So
yeah,
he's short up.
He is really becoming one of the better quarterbacks in Westmoreland County. A couple of college games. You can go back and watch Seton Hill's home opener, but it was a 22-7 loss against East Stroudsburg. St. Vincent College, however, gets their first win of 2022 as the Bearcats knock off Teal 24-16. And by the way, Flick, we saw the legend is now part of St. Vincent's football program.
Our man Landon from Mount Pleasant, who I think the first time we met Landon, Hannah Mears interviewed him, and then you had the opportunity.
No, we first met him 2019 when we went to the camps.
Ah, okay. So you were the first one to talk with him.
Yeah.
And then Hannah did.
2019, we went to Mount Pleasant's camp, and he was there waiting for us.
That's right. I couldn't remember. That's right. It was 19. Then Hannah interviewed him over the whole pandemic year when she was doing a lot of sideline work for us. But yeah, it was really cool. I was watching the St. Vincent football highlights, this highlight film they put together on Twitter, and Landon was sprinting out of the tunnel, if you will, like ahead of everybody, man. They should get him a jersey. Get him out there. Our man Landon. Leading
the Bearcats to a victory this past week. Well, now let's look at the top performers from week 3. These are the top passers, rushers, and receivers, top overall in the entire WPIAL, as well as some of the top guys locally. The top passer, 341 yards for Cody Mullen of Knock. It came in the Knights' defeat, as we mentioned, against Southmoreland. He was 22 of 42. Among Westmoreland County QBs, Jake Phillips, no surprise, 18 of 21 for 312 yards. Raiden Kuroda of York leading the Cougars to a victory. He moves back to quarterback, throws for 176 yards. Cole Chatfield of Mount Pleasant completes just 3 of 6 passes for 170 yards. Caden Kiefer of Southmoreland, 13 of 18 for 167. And Peyton Moulter of Jeanette, 3 of 6 for 124. The top rusher in the WPIAL was Rich Woods of Peters Township, 224 yards on the ground. Not that far behind was Robbie Labuda of Mount Pleasant area, 203 yards as he continues his incredible season. Kai Bruno of Greensburg-Salem, 177. Cody Rubrek, his teammate and quarterback, goes for 168 on the ground. Hayden Siraki, who has been outstanding for Ligonier Valley, rushed for 150. And Zach Bazuska of Franklin Regional, 142 in that big upset. And the top receiver in the WPIAL, a guy that we've seen over the years, Zach Boyd of Elizabeth Ford, 5 receptions, 205 yards. In Westmoreland County, the top man was Ty Keffer of Southmoreland, 9 receptions, 159 yards. This is his first year playing football. He continues to impress. Robbie Labuda, no one more impressive than him. He's also one of the top receivers, 2 receptions, 125 yards. Ian Tufts of Hempfield, 4 catches for 120. And Antonio Mara of York, 2 receptions for 113 yards.
Robbie,
I don't know that we've ever seen
Labuda.
Yeah,
Robbie Labuda.
We've never had a person top rusher and top receiver.
No, we haven't.
Until Robbie Labuda. He is something special.
He is.
Well, we will take a break, but when we come back, we will have something special of our own It will be the always popular plays of the week. We will have 6 big plays. You do not want to go anywhere. And a little bit later, we're going to hear from Lance Getsy and Joey Bain, the head coach and the kicker, respectively, from Franklin Regional, as well as a look ahead to the Week 4 preview. That's as we continue right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron, each and every Wednesday, 7 p.m. on the Westmoreland Sports Network.
The Collision Shop by Jason Mignone is your one-stop shop for all things auto body repair. Our experienced technicians and state-of-the-art facilities have you covered on both passenger and heavy-duty vehicle repairs, including scratches, scrapes, and dents, free estimates, body repairs, welding, refinishing, glass replacement, and more. Our all-new alignment and calibration shop has the tooling, equipment, and staffing to ensure top-quality alignment and calibration adjustments for your vehicle. Our friendly office staff is more than happy to assist you through every step of your vehicle's repair process. Visit the Collision Shop by Jason.com for our complete list of services.
We know speaking with your teen or your young adult about drugs and alcohol can be challenging, but is necessary. Remember to have a conversation, not a confrontation. Establish good communications, break through barriers, and be firm but loving. Here are some helpful tips. Choose a good place and time to chat. Talk with openness. Actively listen. Offer empathy and support. For more information, visit us online at wedacinc.org. Westmoreland Drug and Alcohol Commission. Prevention is key.
Welcome back to Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Sean Meyers, Dan Flickinger, getting you all of the information you need each and every week for high school football across Westmoreland County. And there's nothing you need more, Flick, than a Plays of the Week segment.
This is very true.
Time. Yes, it is time now for everyone's favorite. Let's hit it. Plays of the Week. We begin with Bell Vernon area, and the Leopards, well, they started a lot better than they finished on Friday as Quentin Martin made his presence felt on the second offensive play of the game. His long touchdown run put the home team up just 45 seconds in, as called by myself and my new partner, John Bainbridge.
This is a group that is a little bit experienced on the offensive line. They thought they overachieved last year. Martin gets the sweep, and he shows that speed, and Quentin Martin turns it upfield, and he sees gold in front of him. He'll take it 50 yards for a touchdown.
Now you see why they didn't want to kick it to him either.
Quentin Martin, one of the very best players in the entire country in the class of 2024, and he shows why. What a burst on the end around, and just that quickly the Leopards strike 45 seconds in.
Once he got to the edge, there was nobody catching him.
Talk about setting the tone the way Bell Vernon did, and after last year's game, Sean, we're sitting there thinking, oh, here we go again. Bell Vernon is going to run away with this one, no pun intended. Maybe there was. But again, Quentin Martin dealing with something throughout the game certainly slowed him down. Penn Trafford started playing better against him after that play, and PT ended up coming up with a big play when they needed it.
But you can see why he's got, 15, 20 offers, why he's a 5-star
Why
talent.
he had all the wristbands on when we went to training camp? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that was a pretty special burst right there against a good defense. Speaking of which, we continue Plays of the Week with Penn Trafford, as the Warriors, they had the last lap keyed by a game-changing defensive play. It was Tommy Kalkstein who produced a massive interception with his team trailing less than 2 minutes left, setting up the eventual winning score. Once again, myself and John provide the captions.
The Leopards trying to figure out a way to get a first down without their best player here. Locks might throw here. It's intercepted! Kalkstein at the 20! Well, that's probably the one thing that the Leopards could not allow to happen.
Well, Penn Trafford's going to have the ball on the 20 with one timeout left also. So they could
and now
run
it looks
the ball
like
or throw it.
Martin is hobbling his way back onto the field right now.
And again, Penn Trafford kid Kalkstein fell down there. Could have had more.
So the drive begins at the 20. The Warriors, with a touchdown and extra point, would have the lead.
Man, I don't know if Kalkstein would have taken it back to the house there, Sean, but PT players, I think that was quicksand that night,
Yes.
right? I mean, they were slipping all over the place. There were a few times that they could have made plays into even bigger plays. But hey, it didn't matter because the Warriors end up getting the go-ahead touchdown and the important go-ahead extra point as well. So a big play by Tommy, and great to see that too, because last year John talked about him as a big play type of kid. We didn't see that as much, I think probably because he was overshadowed by all the other guys that they had, the Yakimelis and the Greens. But they really need him to be a big-time player, and he comes up with a huge play.
And I wanted to make sure I got him in here because obviously that's a massive play. But I actually went with a different person for our Dom's Pizzeria player of the game. And some may have disagreed, but, I thought JT Birdsong was massive in that one. He also had an interception. That actually came later. The Warriors defensively had 2 interceptions in the final 2 minutes, the second of which sealed it. But Kalkstein, that was certainly
he'll get his pizza. He'll get it later this season.
Yeah, hopefully. Hopefully the Warriors, they win out, and everyone on the whole team will get a free pizza from Dom.
Don't tell Hempfield that.
Well, that's a good point. We continue plays of the week with Franklin Regional. The Panthers, they opened eyes with their upset of Gateway, and it was fueled by a dominant effort on their defense. That unit put the cap on the victory in the final seconds. It was Zach Bazuska who recorded their 3rd interception of quarterback Brad Birch, as called by the one and only Jonathan Wade.
Birch will roll to that far side. Birch looking, throws it up in the air, just up there, hoping a prayer, and it will be intercepted by the Panthers at the 25-yard line. Making the interception for the Panthers, number 9, and that is, Zach attacked, but that time he attacked on defense. Zach Buska, linebacker, with the Hail Mary throw. He comes up with the interception with 6 seconds to go, and the Panthers are 1 snap away from their biggest victory in a long time over a state-ranked team and a WPIL number 1 ranked team in their classification.
The Zach attack is back, Jack. That's a play on Mighty Ducks, the quack attack there. If you like how I did that. Jonathan's not the only one that has the rhymes and the cool nicknames, but man, talk about, I thought that was really cool, Sean, that you picked that for the play of the week. Just hearing Jonathan talk about Franklin Regional defeating Gateway for the first time since 2016, and I'm sure that gives chills to all of the Franklin Regional folks that are watching this and heard him talk about that. Just such a cool moment for Franklin Regional. And how about Zach Bazuska? Not only does he get the only touchdown of the game for Franklin Regional, obviously we talked about Joey Bain's big performance, but he gets the game-sealing interception.
Yeah, I think it's fitting, right? I mean, the defense won them the game. They score 1 offensive touchdown, but they still win the game because their defense and special teams is so good. So there's multiple ways you can win a game, and certainly they showed that one was the right recipe on that given night. Well, Jeanette may be on the other end of the spectrum. The Jayhawks, they got off the schneid in a big way as they dismantled Frazier behind an explosive offense. It was Noah Sanders instrumental in that explosion as he showed his elusiveness on the first quarter run that put Jeanette in command at 14-0. Brent Wiggum and Anthony D'Annunzio detail the impressive score.
See what they can do here as they start from 48.
We're going to talk about the Frazier defense here in a minute, but the big guy in the middle at defensive tackle, Bruno Sammartino. As here goes the flip to Noah Sanders on the end around again, gets by the first 2 tacklers, and now he has got the angle. Noah Sanders off and running, 48-yard touchdown, and the Hawks add to the 7-0 lead.
Brett, we saw last week how impressive Noah Sanders was catching the football. This time they get him the football in the backfield. He makes 3 tacklers miss, gets to the sidelines, and takes off. Absolutely no one going to catch Noah Sanders into the end zone for the score, picking up where he left off last week.
We've been broadcasting Jeanette for over a decade, Sean, and it almost got boring sometimes because Jeanette would do this to everybody that they played. But of course, the last couple of years, they have fallen on hard times. So it was kind of cool, kind of refreshing to see Jeanette do this against somebody. No offense to Frazier. I'm sure nobody from Frazier is watching, so no one's probably offended.
Ducky might be.
Oh, that's true. Ducky. Sorry, Ducky. He may be watching. But hey, really cool to see Noah go for what he did in that. I mean, it was like hot knife through butter in that game, and just kind of remind you of the old Jeanette days, if you will, that Tom Pallone's trying to bring back.
Yeah, if I recall, they had one win last year, and it was against Riverview, but I think they put up like 28 points. So it wasn't, they weren't the vintage Jeanette like they at least for one night looked like against Fraser. So congrats to the Jayhawks. We continue plays of the week with York as the Cougars won their second game in a row, and they needed some fourth quarter heroics to edge dairy area. It was Gavin Roebuck, our old pal, who provided that, as his touchdown run put York ahead by 3, which accounted for the final margin. John Flickinger and Bob Lisinski provide the commentary.
Wow. Nice to see Jeanette laying it on Fraser, get the Jayhawks and Coach Polona win tonight as back to throw, and we're going to run. He has room. And Roebuck gets outside, stays outside. 2 Trojans miss. And Roebuck's going to take it for the York touchdown, and there are no flags. And I got to say it, there were a couple youngsters.
A 60-yard run
that just couldn't make the play, and they're going to learn from it.
by Gavin Roebuck.
As Roebuck went down the sideline to give York the lead.
6:26
The Trojans had so many opportunities to make the plays.
Sean, even though it was against my alma mater, got to give it up for our man Gavin Roebuck. Not only a good football player, but a good wrestler as well. Someone that we talked to throughout the season a few times.
A great interview.
In both sports. Hannah Mears at our wrestling kickoff show is also doing some fun things with the wrestlers, like they have to put a cookie on their nose and try to get it into their mouth. And so we had some fun with Gavin doing that as well. And he just had some fun running against the Trojans there in getting York its second victory, second straight win. That's something that the Cougars certainly have to feel good about.
Yeah, I don't know that Seton Hill's feeling too good right now. We'll wrap up plays of the week with the Griffins. The offense was hard to come by once again at Seton Hill, but it was a newcomer who did provide a spark, running back Tyron Craggett. Yeah, you might recognize that name, former Connellsville standout. He took a handoff to the house in the third quarter to keep Seton Hill within striking distance. Myself and the triumphantly returning TJ DeStefano provide the soundtrack.
Saw the hood hanging off there.
It's a warm day. I don't know why you would want to do that, but
maybe not a traditional hoodie, but he's got something coming out the back there.
7 yards off the ball.
Craggett. Nice. Look at Craggett. The Connellsville product trying to take it the distance. Stays on his feet. 75 yards. Tyron Craggett gives the Griffins their first points.
one play and a score. Look at that. And all of a sudden, Seton Hill right back in it.
And Mark Bales with a terrific block.
That's what you like to see. See the receivers out in front throwing a block there, and that was a big one by Bales. And Craggett takes it to the house, and the Griffins, just like that, right back in this game, can cut it to 5 here with the extra point.
Why don't we ever get TJ to woo after touchdowns? I don't understand why he doesn't do it.
Too busy trying to figure out something on his computer.
That's true, yeah, why his computer isn't working. But, yeah, for any Penn Trafford fans watching, I think they still have the flashbacks of Craggett running all over PT in that one game. Now, the Warriors ended up winning it, but he was amazing for Connellsville. Really good to see. I mean, that was a huge play in the game at the time. Obviously, it didn't amount to Seton Hill winning, but that got them right back into the game. And a really nice block on that play, too, by Mark Bales, the wide receiver, to help spring him. And that's what Seton Hill needs more of, that's for sure, because the offense just has been, well, let's just say this, Sean. I went to the Steelers game on Sunday. Seton Hill's offense, the Steelers' offense, back-to-back days. It wasn't the most entertaining form of football that I've seen. So hopefully the Griffins and the Steelers can get back to, putting some balls in the end zone.
Absolutely. And if TJ's tuning in, which I assume he certainly is because he watches everything we do, I flipped the blanket around a little bit. It's now the white side of the Penn State blanket. So hopefully he appreciates that.
Does that signify a win over Auburn?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Is that why you flipped it?
Yeah, that's why I flipped it. So that'll do it for this edition of Plays of the Week. But don't go anywhere. When we come back, I'll talk to Lance Getsy, the second-year head coach of Franklin Regional, coming off of the biggest win during his tenure with the Panthers. And more to come later. We will also have Joey Bain, the kicker of Franklin Regional, and a look ahead at the Week 4 preview. But up next, Coach Getsy, as I sit down with him, as we continue right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
That's the power of Bowser. Yeah.
Coach, building a championship team, I know for you, it's all about the details. The same goes with the Bowsers.
No doubt about it. I mean, it's the tiny little details every single day, not forgetting about it the next day and maybe doing it the following day. I mean, I think details are everything.
As Coach says, get your eyes right on the power of Bowser.
The Bowser family is proud to have Coach Narduzzi as part of our team.
Welcome back to Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Each and every Wednesday, 7 p.m. I'm Sean Meyers, now joined by the second-year head coach of the Franklin Regional Panthers, coming off of his biggest win during his time at FR, Lance Getsy. First off, Lance, congratulations. What a massive victory it was to knock off not only a rival in Gateway, but one of the best teams in all of 5A, preseason, probably the favorites in terms of the Gators. The reaction that you and, more importantly, your players had after a win like that.
Oh, we were all excited. I mean, it's a big win for us as a program, but it's our first conference game, and with them only taking 8 teams into the playoffs, every conference game means something. So to get that first one is huge for our program.
I know in your first year guiding Franklin Regional in 2021, you did make the playoffs, but you had a losing record overall. And at least to me on the outside, it didn't feel like you had that trademark victory. This certainly qualifies. So outside of, the immediate focus of getting the conference win, do you think this is something that maybe you can use to build momentum and belief in your players for this year and maybe even years to come?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're buying in no matter what, that they're those types of kids. But a win like that definitely does build just the overall mentality and belief that we can play with anybody right now.
I know Franklin Regional 5, 10, 15 years ago, it was a team always contending for championships. The last few years, they've been a playoff contender, but seemingly haven't gone over the hump. What do you see from this year's team that maybe leads you to believe that this could be a team that makes some noise in the postseason?
How close we all are. I believe that our kids believe that we're a family. We love each other, and we fight for each other. We battle for each other. Our game plan going in this week asked Aiden Hudock and Zach and even Roman to do things that they don't normally do, with the blocking and just selling out for their brothers. So whenever they took on that role and they were fine with it, and it wasn't about me getting the ball more or someone else not getting the ball, it was just about the team doing whatever it took to win the game.
Gateway's probably a favorite because they have such a potent offensive collection of talent, in particular Brad Birch, a quarterback. And it seemed like you guys really did a nice job against him, shut down the passing game by and large. How did you succeed on the defensive side of the football against Gateway?
Well, I mean, my defensive coordinator came up with a great game plan. Our kids responded. We have a lot of young kids playing on our defense, only 3 seniors. So I think every week they're building and getting better. I'm starting to understand what we're asking of them. And they're just playing faster because they're getting better understanding. And we really preach the physicality of the game. And I think that part is what's really coming into play. To slow down that offense, Birch really didn't start the game, and I don't know if he was a little banged up coming into this game, but our kids were able to be disruptive, and we were able to jump some routes, some screen routes that they try to throw into the flats. Just a lot of game planning. And whenever you have some sophomores coming down during their QRT time, which is like in the middle of the school day, lunch and time to study for some classes, I'm coming and watching film during that time. Then I have a sophomore that types up all the game plans, real small piece of paper to put in wristbands so that the whole defense could see what they run out of different formations. You have guys buying in and believing. And so that, I think when you get that, that there's something special going on.
Well, you talk about wanting to play physical football and succeeding in doing so against Gateway. offensively, it seemed like you really had a lot of success on the ground. And it was your quarterback, Roman Sarnik. It was your running back, Zach Bazuska. They both had terrific performances. Is that going to be a staple this season, that you're going to succeed first and foremost on the ground?
I think we're comfortable succeeding either way, in the air or on the ground. I think it all depends on the matchups. I thought we matched up against Gateway better on the ground. So it all depends on who we're playing and what matchups we have. And, we try to take what the defense has given us. If we just felt like we could get the edge a little bit, and we're going to man up and see if we could get a little bit of a push. And our line did a great job of working all week on their steps. We knew where the blitzes would be coming from and the pressure would be coming from. So we worked really hard on that this week, and our kids responded.
And I think one reason why you can succeed through the air is because you have an incredibly talented receiver and just a guy that you get him the football, he makes plays, in Aiden Hudock. How much does he make it easier in terms of what you're trying to do, whether it be on offense or even in special teams where he's dynamic in the return game?
When you have a kid like that, people have to respect that, and I think that keeps pressure off of our run game. But this past week, he took on a whole new role, and he was right there with the line blocking outside backers, linebackers, safeties. So he really grew as a young player, and he got a lot of respect from his teammates and his coaching staff for the role that he played. And I know on defense, he's a kid that we asked to shut down the best receiver on the other team week after week, and he takes that role on, and I think he's excited about it.
So we focused a lot on that 16-7 victory at home against Gateway, but let's rewind a couple of weeks. You decide to go with the second scrimmage as opposed to week 0. So when you open the season, you're going against Greater Latrobe. And I know you remember the game against Greater Latrobe last year, in which you had an unbelievable comeback to win by a single point. Well, it looked like it was almost the exact same storyline this year, except Greater Latrobe ultimately won in double overtime. So to open your season with what could have been a deflating loss, how did your team bounce back so quickly that next week against Connellsville, and then obviously now a couple weeks later against Gateway?
Well, I don't think that we practiced right. I don't think you win games on Friday nights for the excitement and enthusiasm that you bring on Friday nights. I think it's all about what you bring Monday through Thursday. And I'm trying to teach these guys how to bring that same fire that they do on Friday night to each day of practice. And every week so far during the season, we've gotten better with our practice. Now, we're nowhere near where we need to be to get to a contender, but we're getting better every week in practice. And if we continue to build on that, and hopefully this big win this week helps us build on that, then I think we could be okay.
I know right now you probably haven't thought too far ahead, but it is a new look conference because Franklin Regional, Penn Trafford, and Gateway all remain, but then it's 3 new teams that come in. Hempfield area, Norwin drop down from 6A to 5A. Plum bumps up from 4A to 5A. As a whole, especially with playoff spots at a premium, how do you kind of evaluate the landscape in the Big East this year?
I just think every week's going to be a tough game. We're all neighboring schools in our conference, which is a great thing because I think it brings a lot of excitement Friday nights with the crowds. But it's also going to make preparation that much harder for us coaches and players. And it's going to be exciting, but every week's going to be a tough week. And, some people say, oh, if you lose one conference game, you're in trouble. But I think a lot of teams are going to beat each other because it's about matchups. And I think there's a lot of teams that are going to compete at a high level this year in our conference.
So you get a little bit of a break from Big East Conference play this week. You go against Shaler area, and that was a Titans team that really had impressed until last week when they were on the wrong end of a blowout against Hempfield area. I would certainly think they want to have a bounce-back performance. What have you seen from Shaler that really jumps out to you?
They're a very physical team. They like to run the ball a lot as well, but they're very physical. It seems like they're very well coached. They play their assignments well. There's not a lot of holes, so you have to be very sound on the offense and defensive side of the ball just to be able to have success against them.
So I know you want to win every game, certainly, but it is non-conference. However, they are in the same classification. So if it does come to getting in the playoffs, that certainly could factor into seeding. How do you approach a non-conference game sort of in the midst of the conference schedule that you've begun?
Just like any other game. We're going to approach it the same way. Every game's important. We're trying to learn how to win. And when you're a program trying to learn how to win, you got to take every game serious. So we're going to approach this week just like any other week, maybe just like with an extra day during the week because we play on Saturday instead of Friday.
So I know when you think back to a year ago, you take over for a legend in Greg Botta and big shoes to fill. He had so much success. I know you worked with him as well, and I think he reached out to you after the victory this past week. But how do you think the transition has gone from what Coach Botta had to what you've tried to bring? Because even though I'm sure you respect what he did, you want to have your own flavor. How has that gone now a year and 3 games into your tenure at Franklin Regional?
I think it's going all right. I think when you're winning games, it goes a lot better. When you're losing games, it doesn't go as well. So me and Coach Botta talk almost every week. So he believes in me. He believes in these kids, and he's happy to see like this last victory. But we really have a lot of work to do in terms of getting that mentality for all 58 players on the team. We're not looking just for 5-6 guys that have a certain mentality. We want all 58. So I think when you get a whole team, a whole family working towards the same goal with the same mentality, that you could have a lot of success.
And lastly, you talk about the same goal. You talked before about you still have work to do to get to becoming a contender. So what are the goals for 2022 for Franklin Regional?
Win our next game. It's that simple. Every day, win the drill. We're trying to develop that competitiveness amongst our players. I think you have to learn how to compete constantly. So we have competition Tuesdays. We're just trying to do everything we can to try to get these kids to understand that they have to compete in everything that they do. And whenever they get that mentality right, I think that these kids could go a long way because there's a lot of talent on the team, just not sure how to bring it out yet.
Well, Lance, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation. Once again, congratulations on the big victory and keep it up the rest of the way here in 2022.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I appreciate Westmoreland Sports and everything you guys do for our team and our conference and all the teams around us. These kids really appreciate it. And
I know you love talking to Jonathan Whaley every single week as well. He was through the roof with excitement after that victory on Friday.
As I was. And, I enjoy talking to Jonathan as well. And he always asks about my daughters. And I got to see them this weekend. They came out from school. And so that was always fun. And for him to remember that and mention them on the radio, that gives them the thrills as well. So I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's Lance Getsy, head coach of Franklin Regional. We'll take a break and continue right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
At D'Annunzio's, our menu is extensive with an abundance of selections. The next best thing to being at one of our 3 locations is having our frozen food and jarred sauce in your own home. For our frozen food selections, we have wedding soup, pasta fagioli, lasagna, stuffed cheese rigatoni, ricotta cavatelli, and potato gnocchi. Our jarred sauces include the original, smooth, marinara, and tomato cream. These products can all be found at our restaurants or your local grocer.
We roll along here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Big thanks to Lance Getsy. Every now and then, Flick, I'm going to be honest, I almost call him Luke.
I've done that.
I always have to remind myself. Luke coming off of a loss for the Chicago Bears. Yeah. And however, I did tell Lance that I was very disappointed in his brother because I'm a 49ers fan, as you know. And week 1, the Chicago Bears kind of pulled an upset, defeating San Francisco. For those who don't know, Lance's brother, Luke Getsy, is now the offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears, was a quarterback's coach with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers previously, but getting a nice opportunity. So he beat my team, and I wasn't too happy about it, but maybe.
Yeah, in a monsoon, by the way.
Yeah, that was. I think Lance actually told me he was there at that game.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, anyway, but I kept it professional throughout the interview.
Rain gear on. Yeah.
Lance deserves it because that was the heck of a win. And, I love that he also said, Shaler, we treat that like a must-win game. And I know that coach is always going to say stuff like that, But really, if they don't, I think the players will pick up on that, and then it sort of permeates to the players. So maybe they don't treat it as a must win. So it's a little different playing on a Saturday. You don't have the same routine. But I think he realizes that's another opportunity, because you lose some steam if you drop that non-conference one after the biggest win in years and years.
And we mentioned earlier about the confidence and all that momentum going forward. But you can only have that and capitalize on that if your next game you go out and play the same way. If you don't, then obviously it's still a gigantic win, but I don't know. I guess the excitement isn't quite there if you go out and lose to Shaler. If you go out and beat Shaler, then you're really rolling, man. Because again, I know Shaler got beat pretty bad by Hempfield, but it's still a pretty good Shaler team. So if you go out and beat Shaler, I think you're still rolling. It'll be a hard matchup for Franklin playing on homecoming on Saturday.
But they must feel like they have an advantage in terms of special teams, because they have our player of the week, kicker Joey Bain. And so, Flick, I don't know how often we have kickers win this. I'm not sure if it's the first time. Did Nate Schlesinger ever win?
I want to say that Nate did, and I think he's the only other kicker that won. I'm pretty sure of that. I know we had one other, and Nate Schlesinger, I believe, it was who it was, and obviously he was one of the best kickers in Penn Trafford history. Was a big reason why they won Whippy-Owen State Championships last year. But yeah, congratulations to Joey. Really cool interview. Glad I got a chance to, we're going to see that coming up here, get a chance to talk with him, the 3 field goals plus that extra point in Franklin Regional's victory. But we actually had 6 nominees this week. Again, we typically have 4, sometimes 5, but there were so many great performances. Hey, we'll go up to 10. I don't care. Whoever we believe that really deserved to be nominated, that's who we're going to put out there. And it was really it was a close vote this week. Ty Keffer obviously had a huge game for Southmoreland with 9 catches for 159 yards, also a pick 6, plus those 2 receiving touchdowns. Man, Robbie Labuda, hey, he got some press from the Post-Gazette this week. Sometimes the PG forgets that Westmoreland County exists, I think. Most of their coverage, Allegheny County. Robbie got some press this week, but, I mean, why not? The way the numbers that he put up, Noah Sanders, Cody Rubrecht, and Hayden Siraki. Siraki with a huge game for a Ligonier Valley team that's having another solid season, and Hayden has been just tremendous this year for Ligonier Valley. So congratulations to all of the nominees. Don't forget, you can vote for who you believe should be Player of the Week, and it's up to you. Whoever wins it, by your voting, that's who we name Player of the Week, and this week it was Joey Bain. By the way, I was listening back to that Franklin Regional Gateway game, or watching back to it, I should say, and Jonathan was promoting our Player of the Week. He was excited about Plays of the Week. He was going crazy about that, and he reminded people, hey, this isn't us picking it. This is up to you. Your votes will pick our Player of the Week, so just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think we've had Labuda and Rubric on there almost every single week.
I mean, yeah, and Siraki has been on it a few times as well. So, I mean, and even if those guys aren't winning Player of the Week, it's just the recognition of the great games that they have played this year, and I'm sure they're going to continue to do that.
Well, the player who stands above all the rest, Joey Bain. We'll talk to Dan Flickinger as we continue. And after that, we'll wrap up with the look ahead with the Week 4 preview. But up next, Joey Bain, the kicker of Franklin Regional, right here as we continue on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Now is the time to save at Sendell Subaru in Greensburg. We've got inventory on the lot and more on the way. Forester, Outback, Ascent, Legacy, and more. Get a great deal on a new 2022 Subaru. Check out SendellSubaru.com today. Looking to turn your current vehicle into cash? Sendell pays top dollar. Get your best deal at Sendell Subaru, Route 30 Greensburg, SendellSubaru.com. We would love to meet you.
But if he makes this one here, it should be a good feeling among the Panthers faithful, and the Gateway people are going to say, we got a little more work to do here tonight. It'll be a 22-yard field goal, and he is good inside the near upright. A 22-yard field goal by Bain, and it's now a 2-score game for the Franklin Regional Panthers, and he gets applause from his teammates, well deserved.
And welcome back to Westmoreland on the Gridiron here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Dan Flickinger back with you, and it is time to talk with our Week 3 Westmoreland Sports Network Player of the Week, or maybe we should say Kicker of the Week. It's not always where we have a field goal kicker joining us as Player of the Week, but man, he was so instrumental in the Panthers' victory against the Gateway Gators. He is sophomore Joey Bain, 3 field goals plus an extra point. Joey, thanks a lot for taking some time out of your very busy schedule and joining us here tonight.
Thank you.
Joey, I'm going to get into a few things here, but I want to ask you first. We talked to your coach on the show tonight. From a player's perspective, what was the excitement level like knocking off a team that's one of the best in the WPAL and Gateway and a team you hadn't beaten for a while? What was the excitement level like after the game?
I would say we were really, obviously really excited. The team was, I think we surprised a lot of people. We always knew we could win the game from the start. We knew they probably were going to think we were the underdogs of that game. We came into as the underdogs, and just getting the upset victory and just the feelings you have after contributing to a win where you do a lot of work, just the feeling with your teammates and just the joy on everyone's face, especially for Logan. After he got hurt, we just I think everything we did just went was for him in that game.
Yeah, I want to ask you about Logan in a little bit, but your team doesn't win if you don't knock through those 3 field goals. So what was it like personally for you to know how much you contributed to an epic win like that?
Yeah, I mean, my team really puts me in the position to do those things. And I would say, I just do my job in those situations. It feels good, when you make the field goals, but, my team does most of the work and I just, have to do, what I do. The field goals weren't, obviously really, really far. I was 22, 27, 34. So, but getting points and really contributing to the win, just, I don't always do that. That's probably my first time where I made, I think, 3 field goals in a game. So especially against a good team, just makes it even better.
Now, when you hit your first one, again, I know that, it wasn't super long, but when you hit your first one, did you feel pretty confident after that first make that hey, I got something going tonight? That one felt good?
Yeah. I usually once I kick for the first time on the field, I kind of get that adrenaline pumping and that sense of confidence. And, I hit the field goal. We were, score. We were keeping the game tight. You could tell from when we drove down the field that drive, we, obviously were doing work on them, and, I make that field goal. I have that confidence and then, go kick a touchback right after that. Just keep the momentum going and just feels good.
Now you mentioned earlier about Logan Donnelly, serious injury during the game. What was the feeling like in the locker room at halftime? Because I feel like it could have went one of 2 ways, and I know how obviously it did go. You guys rallied around it, but sometimes that can also push a team the other way where maybe they come out in the second half and don't play as well. So what was kind of the feeling at halftime? What was said maybe by the coaches and the players to really rally around Logan and kind of win it for him?
Yeah, we came in the locker room a little bit down, even though we were winning, I would say. And, a lot of people were really upset. People had a lot of emotion, on their face. It was just a lot of people were upset, but everyone kind of still had that sense of seriousness and knew how, that we were winning and we needed to, almost do it for him. And it felt like he would want it for us to win that game. And, we hung up his, his helmet, his jersey on the locker room. We kept, stayed quiet. We, just let everyone talk. We did our meetings, halftime meetings. Me as a kicker, I kind of just sit in the back and I just kind of just stay focused and try not to interrupt anything or just, stay calm and whatever. And yeah, I mean, I would say everyone was kind of emotionally affected, but no one didn't really seem like no one got too down or the point where they, were actually affected on the field the way they played. I'd say it increased, if anything.
Yeah. Have you had a chance to talk with Logan since?
I've only texted him, I wished him well and stuff, but I haven't really got to talk to him in person. Haven't seen him, but yeah, besides that, I mean, I've heard his surgery went well and
good.
He's, at home right now. So yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Now I have to ask you the mindset of a kicker here. Now the team is driving down the field and that, hey, they could call upon you at any moment. So what are some of the things you're doing on the sideline to get yourself prepared?
Yeah. So depending on which way we're driving, I'll always turn my kicking net, whatever direction we're driving so I can see the field. I'll usually do one kick after we cross the 50-yard line. just into the net, because you don't want to, as a kicker, I don't really like to kick too much into the net because you almost like wear yourself down, and you just want to make every rep you do on the sideline just very quality. Just every rep, just like in a game, like imagine going through the uprights. I sometimes get teammates to hold the ball for me, just to imagine, they snap it and they bring it down. So I can just imagine being in the game. And, I'll probably do one once across the 50. And then after that set of downs or whatever, where we go after that, I'll do another one at the first down, and then maybe one right before I go out for the field goal. And I know I'm probably going to go out right on third or fourth down. And yeah, that's usually what I do. And I usually just try to stay pretty I don't let anyone talk to me, or kind of just stay by myself, stay isolated, and just think about making it. Just that's the main thing. Just having no doubt, and just knowing that you're going to make it, and just having that reassuring sense of confidence just really helps you, especially as a kicker. It's mentally for me way more challenging than, physically doing this, this kicking it through the uprights. It's just all in my head, really.
Well, it's really interesting too, because this is your second year of playing football, and I can imagine your first year as a kicker. Were you going out with some butterflies? I mean, has that gone away now in your second year?
Yeah, because in the first year, obviously you're a freshman, you come in, you never really kicked before. I mean, I didn't have as much pressure as I do this year to do well, because you've had time to practice, had time to get better. But I was obviously really nervous last year. I would say first game we had against Plum week 0, that game, I played good, made all my extra points, obviously I've improved after, then, but yeah, it was a good game to come out on. That first game, I got a lot of butterflies out, but every game that season, I was definitely more nervous than I am now, because once you miss, for the first, you miss it, kind of what the feeling is. And it's almost like no one's really going to get on you. Especially my teammates are really supportive, even when if I miss. I missed the 43-yarder. That's it this season in the first game, but they always are really supportive and just move on to the next one, because you really just can't really think about the past, and it just really just get to the next one, just keep going. And you just kind of carry that confidence, that knowing even if you miss, your teammates are there to support you, and your coaches are there also to support you. So
yeah, and they have that confidence in you. Everybody misses a kick, but you're going to come back and hit the next one.
And that's just why I like the confidence that my coaches have shown to me this season. I have 6 field goals in 3 games, and that just means a lot from, the coaches giving me the opportunity to do that and be put in that position, because a lot of kickers, some of their coaches don't trust them and don't, rather go for it on 4th down than let their kicker kick it. And I would say just having that advantage, just me being able to kick it through consistently, makes it a whole lot easier to win games.
So for those that don't know, Joey also plays soccer. So I got to ask you, man, what your schedule is like day to day in terms of juggling practices and games. What's it like?
It's pretty busy. It's pretty busy, especially with school. I usually come home after school because I walk to school and walk home. So it's a lot of walking back and, from the school. And I usually come home, then I'll go to football at 3, and then we have practice usually 3:30. Sometimes changes depending on the day. And then I'll go from full practice from 3:30 to 4:30, 5-ish. Come back home, eat, and soccer's usually at 6. Then I got to go to soccer practice 6 to 8. Then I get back home 8:30. Then I, do whatever homework I have, get ready for bed. Usually try to go to bed before 11. That's usually how it goes.
Wow. And this is something, but you enjoy it though, right?
Yeah. I honestly think it makes me do better in school. That might sound crazy because of how much I do, but it's that scheduling, what you have to do, and you don't have procrastination time. It's you do it at this time. You're really efficient with your time. So you're always, doing something. So I especially in sometimes in the winter, or in this winter, especially not the spring as much, but in the winter, I'll, come home and I'll have hours before a soccer practice or something. And I would say I procrastinate more, and then, it doesn't lead to sufficient of time, especially where I could be practicing, doing something else. Yeah.
So what made you decide to give football a try last year? What went into that?
So the story that comes with this is that I think a week or 2 into August last year, one of my friends, Drew DeVola, lineman on our team, a good friend of mine, always, have been friends with him since I was a little kid and played soccer with them for many years. And he just told me one day that they still needed a kicker, and that, Caden Smith was the kicker the year before, and he was going to be if I didn't. And, I came in, tried out after soccer practice that like on a summer day. And I didn't really kick that many times before that, maybe 2 or 3 times. And then I do like a kicking competition just against some other kid that was trying out for my school. He doesn't really play soccer. I mean, I didn't really know much of it. And I started like hitting 40-yard field goals pretty consistently. And my coaches were impressed. And I was, I kind of impressed myself a little bit. I didn't really know what I could do and
know what to
couldn't do.
expect.
Yeah, I didn't really know. And they were impressed, and it kind of just made me like, you feel good. And I just kind of like that feeling of just like being able to do something that other people were impressed with. And, that snapped it on, and I just kept going with it. And I just, that's how it went.
It's a very, very cool story. Now, you still have some years left, obviously. You're just a sophomore, but do you kind of want to keep the option open of playing football maybe in college, or are you kind of set on soccer? What are you thinking?
100%. Yeah, I definitely would want to play football in college if I got the opportunity. It's always, I like doing it, and it's just, an opportunity there for me to go to college and get a scholarship or do, go to, a different way just in soccer, giving you more opportunities to get a scholarship. So,
yep, those options are out there, man, if you keep doing what you're doing for sure. Now, one final thing for you. You guys play Shaler on Saturday, which is different, obviously. What do you have to do to keep this thing rolling after such a big win against Gateway? What do you have to do to come away with a win, do you think?
I think we just really need to not get too high like on the win, and just, don't underestimate the teams we play against from now on, and just keep it rolling, honestly, because we know after beating Gateway that we can do these things, win these games. It's just, I think it's all up to us in the way we just, practice, come up mentally prepared, just thinking, like having that confidence, not being, too down on ourselves for the game, like not having that sense of confidence and always thinking we're going to win, just preparing, really. I mean, as a kicker, you don't really experience as much as other players do, but I would know from what they, do, and they prepare a lot, and these games are always tough. They're always, each game means a lot, and you just got to win. You got to win.
Absolutely. Joey, this was great. You did a fantastic job. Congratulations, man, for those 3 field goals and that extra point.
Thank
Keep
you.
booting them through, and we'll talk again soon, I hope.
Thank you.
That is Joey Bain, sophomore kicker and also soccer player for the Franklin Regional Panthers. Coming up next, we'll preview Week 4 games right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron on the Westmoreland Sports Network.
Right now at Smale Kia, take $500 off any in-stock or incoming 2023 Kia Soul or Forte, or lease a 2023 Kia Forte LXS for just $295 a month. A fair price all the time. At Smale Kia, you never have to worry about the ugly 3. No sly market adjustments, no creepy addendum, no fancy surcharges. Avoid the ugly 3 and be free. Shop Smale Kia, where you never pay more than MSRP.
East Suburban Sports Medicine, Western Pennsylvania's #1 physical therapy practice, is now in Greensburg. Voted by Trib Live readers as the best of the best. Our new Greensburg clinic provides orthopedic, concussion, lymphedema, and pelvic health therapy. Conveniently located at 133 Donahoe Road, right next to Best Buy. East Suburban Sports Medicine, the best care anywhere, hands down. Call 412-856-8060 and schedule an appointment today.
And welcome back. We thank Joey Bain, the kicker for Franklin Regional. Now, I had a chance to see Joey on the pitch earlier this season in a victory against Penn Trafford. Haven't seen him playing football, but obviously pretty talented in both sports. You love the guys who can play 2 sports in the same season. It's pretty neat, too, that you can kick against one team on the pitch, and then on the football field, he'll be kicking against Penn Trafford later on this season, too. So, yeah, just a great kid and a very and those weapons, John Ruane will tell you, especially with the kickers that he's had, and not just Schlesinger, Terrabrella, Matt Locknane, I remember him kicking for them, Casey Youngst kicking for PT. I mean, those weapons are certainly invaluable. Yeah, absolutely. And Franklin Regional has had some good ones as well over the years with the Falco. Well, let's take a look ahead at the Week 4 preview. Now, we mentioned at the onset, a lot of our Westmoreland County teams opened the conference slate last week. Not all of them. And so not all of them this week are conference games, but it does, you start to get to the point of the season where most of the teams are playing conference games. That's important because playoffs are determined by your record in the conference. Now, seeding can factor all these other things in. But conference record ultimately determines if you make the playoffs or not. And so a lot of these teams, it'll be their first or second conference games. It will be the first conference game for Penn Trafford and Hempfield area. That will be a big one. The Warriors at the Spartans. We will have that on video, 7 p.m. A battle that I don't think we thought would be a big one heading into the season necessarily. We thought, it's a good Westmoreland County matchup, but now it feels like one of the biggest matchups in the entire WPIAL at this point.
I'm telling you, the more Hempfield has been winning, the more, you start believing that they are legit. They are legit. And then they go out and again against a pretty good Shaler team this year, just absolutely mop the floor with them. And Penn Trafford coming off of a really exciting victory against Bell Vernon. I mean, this really makes things exciting, doesn't it, Sean? This is what you should want as a high school football fan, as a Westmoreland County high school football fan. You want Franklin Regional knock off Gateway. You want Hempfield to come in undefeated. You want Latrobe to compete with Thomas Jefferson and Burrell to do what they're doing, Mount Pleasant to do what they're doing, because it's not necessarily the same teams that are doing it year after year. We have some new blood, I think, this year with Burrell and with Hempfield, again, doing big things, and with Franklin Regional trying to get back to that perch. So it makes things really exciting, I think. And I have a feeling we're going to have a huge crowd and hopefully a lot of viewers to the game on Friday.
Two things about this. One, can anyone slow down the offense of Hempfield area? I think that Penn Trafford is the most well-equipped by far of any team that they've played to slow them down offensively. But slow them down, that still might mean 28, 35 points. So that'll be curious to see in that regard.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest difference for Hempfield, they've had some good skilled players in the past. It's, good quarterbacks, good receivers, running backs. They have a really good offensive line. And I don't know that you've talked with John Ruane yet, but I'm sure that's one of the things that he'll tell you, because you hear from coaches about how Hempfield is up front. And I think that's been the biggest key for them this year. I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, Geno Caesar has been unbelievable. Ian Tufts, Katonka. I mean, Phillips, they have the position. They have the skill player guys, Benikonski, but they also are able to do what they do up front. So this will be a matchup that will tell a lot for sure.
And I am having flashbacks. 2019 Southmoreland High School. The Scotties were undefeated when they hosted McGuffey. And that feel, even though the season kind of took a turn in the wrong direction afterwards for Southmoreland, it had that special feel. I think Hempfield might be like that on Friday.
Couldn't agree more. And I'll never, and I know you talked about that game, and I'll never forget the atmosphere either of the game that you're referencing at Southmoreland. It was really neat. And I remember the atmospheres at Derry when they were good under Tim Sweeney.
Playoff win against Central Valley, right?
Yep, Central Valley. It was a packed house, and those are the things that you might not remember everything from the game, but you remember the atmosphere. And hopefully, no matter what happens, PT Hempfield, those kids won't forget about the atmosphere. It was also funny. I mentioned earlier I was at the Steelers game. I turned to my right, a section over. Brandon Rapp is sitting there. He was trying to look cool, and I think trying to blend in. He had like his sunglasses on.
That's the athletic director at Hempfield, for those not in the know.
And then a few rows behind him was Carrie Hetrick from Penn Trafford, AD. So I texted Brandon and I said, "Hey, can you guys, we can get you on film. I'll video you. Maybe starting to, I don't know. How about make things a little interesting?"
So you wanted a drunken brawl between the athletic directors?
I didn't say drunken brawl. No, I get
some of that at Steelers games.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't see any of those for some reason. I'm shocked that I didn't, which was good. I thought maybe we could start some fireworks up before the PT Hempfield game, get some people talking this week, Westmoreland Sports Network. But
I guess it'll just have to come down to the players on the field.
Those guys are friends, I guess. So maybe not this week.
Another game that we will have on video, the Derry area Trojans host Apollo Ridge. The Vikings, pretty good program. They got a really good running back in Nick Kersey and a pretty accomplished coach in John Skiba. So we'll see if Derry area is able to bounce back. One question will be the availability of their players. Obviously, they'll need to be at full strength to win a game like that. Norwin will host Woodland Hills. That is non-conference, but that is a 5A matchup. Remember, the Wolverines used to be in the Big East. they shifted over, I believe, to the Northeast Conference. So that will not count towards the conference standings, but a good test for the Knights as they welcome the Wolverines. Jeanette goes on the road to play at Charleroi. We will have an audio broadcast of that one. And then our other audio broadcast will be a Saturday afternoon tilt as Franklin Regional will play at Shaler area. We talked about this one a little bit earlier. Panthers, you certainly don't want to take a step back after taking a massive leap forward. So that will be a motivated Titans team. Remember, they were on the wrong end of that blow-up against Hempfield area a week ago. So playing not under the lights, playing under the sunlight. We'll see how that one goes on Saturday. Laurel Highlands at Greater Latrobe. Rodney Gallagher comes to Memorial Stadium. Talked to Coach Prady, and he said, yeah, we expect him to be a quarterback. That's a guy who's moved around, quarterback, receiver. He's going to play receiver in all likelihood at WVU next year. But he's a special athlete. But Greater Latrobe has their own special athlete, Robbie Fulton. Great to see him get back near 200 yards rushing. This will be a big game because both those teams, 0-1. Remember, Laurel Highlands lost to McKeesport last week, and the Wildcats, as we mentioned, came up short to TJ. You do not want to be sitting at 0-2. So I think that the stakes certainly intensify for a game like that.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, especially playing at home at Memorial Stadium. And again, after a loss, do you take momentum out of that game? Maybe not usually, but competing with one of the best teams in the WPIAL, I think you certainly can. So hopefully the Wildcats will be able to kind of bring that over. Certainly will be a defensive test for them, though.
Yeah, John Wetzel had a little bit of an improved performance throwing the football last week.
He had a big touchdown pass, absolutely.
Yep. They need to get all phases going as they continue in the conference ledger. Kiski area at North Catholic. Steel Valley at Ligonier Valley. That is a really, really good Ironmen team, and the Rams know all about that. But very few teams defeat Ligonier Valley at Weller, so that should be a good one. How about this Westmoreland County battle? The Yaw Cougars riding high with consecutive victories, playing at Burrell. The Buccaneers trying to bounce back. They are 3-1 coming off of their first defeat of the season. Greensburg Central Catholic at Springdale. That is a Dynamos team that has been really good for most of the past decade, but they have fallen on hard times this year. Springdale has just not been competitive. I would not be surprised to see GCC continue to put up plenty of offense on Friday night. California at Monessen. And for non-conference games, there's some good ones. Bell Vernon area at Thomas Jefferson, 7 o'clock. I love that they have kept this rivalry intact, even though they are no longer in the same classification. Once again, you get those two teams on the same field, it's going to be something special.
Oh, my gosh. How great was the game last year with Devin Whitlock running in the go-ahead and game-winning touchdown for Bell Vernon. I remember, I think it was the left sideline. I remember him running in. And
40 yards, yep.
That's a game that you just don't forget about. Again, another great atmosphere, I'm sure, at TJ this time. And, Bell Vernon continues to play a really, really tough non-conference schedule. And, again, that's going to get them really ready for conference play. The question is, Quentin Martin, was he bothered by an injury? Was he bothered by cramps last week? We'll see what his availability is like for this game against TJ.
It almost feels unbelievable that Bell Vernon area could have a 3-game losing streak. Remember, this was a team that went undefeated all the way to a WPL championship game, which they lost last year to Aliquippa. So again, they are playing an absolutely brutal non-conference schedule to get themselves ready for the conference and probably beyond in all likelihood.
Yep.
East Allegheny at Greensburg Salem. That is a Golden Lions team that's playing some good football. 3 consecutive victories after what was, I think, a bit of an outlier. They lost to Hempfield in a big way, but so is everyone. So if you're Coach Kiefer, you like where your team's at right now. Mount Pleasant area.
Sean has been a man-child, by the way, for Greensburg Salem, and we kind of thought that was going to happen.
He might not always put up great passing numbers,
right?
But he's going to make some really big plays every single game. He's just a special talent, and a guy that I know Coach Kiefer's pounding the drum to get more college interest because, quite frankly, the way he's playing, he certainly deserves it. Mount Pleasant area at Freeport. That should be a good one. Southmoreland at Deer Lakes, and Valley at Uniontown round out the non-conference. And a couple of college games, Seton Hill at Slippery Rock, 6 o'clock, St. Vincent goes on the road for the first time this season at Grove City, 7 o'clock on Saturday. Well, Flick, got a couple minutes left here. Anything else you want to add to this, or maybe fill in the listeners and viewers about?
Well, I have to add here, Sean, that
yes.
Hempfield and Penn Trafford, right, playing this week, a huge Westmoreland County clash. We could have one next week between Mount Pleasant and Greensburg-Salem as well in terms of conference play, both of those teams, and really obviously having good seasons overall. We are in contract negotiations with one TJ DeStefano to broadcast that game. So
now that would be he would be sort of conflicted in theory, right?
I think so. I mean, he's a GS grad, but he had broadcast Mount Pleasant for a lot of years. So I don't know. He's demanding a lot of things, like a pregame meal, a halftime meal, filet mignon, and stuff. So I don't know if we're going to be able to get this thing done, but we're trying our best. I don't know if you have any money to donate to the cause, but we're in strong contract negotiations.
I will make sure that they play Mo Bamba on every third down.
Yes, I think he would definitely like that. And his agent is his wife, Crystal, and she's a tough cookie. So we're trying to make this happen. But Mo Bamba, I think that they played it off it on Saturday. So,
and he's really up on the music scene too. He knows absolutely nothing.
Ian Roger.
At all. So listen,
that's all I have to add, Sean. That's all. TJ DeStefano, contract negotiation.
We're not doing Seton Hill football this week.
Correct. Yeah.
Facilities do not permit that, but we're still the home of the Griffins. So you can, follow us all season long. We'll be bringing plenty of that. And then the other thing, we always mention this. It's not just football. We talk about high school football here, but we have some great video and audio broadcasts all fall long, all throughout the school year, and then a lot of content on our website as well.
Yeah, and not only do we cover additional, I want to mention certainly Seton Hill sports. We had Seton Hill soccer earlier today. We're going to have, since we're not covering football, we're going to have Seton Hill soccer on Saturday. But as you mentioned, football, yes, but also we understand there's boys and girls soccer, which is covered with some of our broadcasts, but also our scores every single night. We have boys and girls soccer scores on our website, on our scores page. Thank you to Westmoreland Drug and Alcohol Commission, by the way, for sponsoring that. Volleyball, certainly. And we cover these other sports, too, by our notebook that you prepare every Monday. And also our Westmoreland Alumni Q&A. We have some soccer, volleyball players as well. And golf, of course, too. We've had some great golfing
Fenton this week. Emma Fenton, former Greater Latrobe, and her younger sister is still a member of the Wildcats volleyball team. And her brothers were not too bad in terms of their athletic careers as well. So, always enjoy shining a light on some of the sports that maybe don't get the same recognition that football does, quite frankly.
Absolutely, buddy. I agree 100%. Should be a great week. Looking forward to it.
All right. Well, we thank our great guests, a couple of Panthers, their head coach, Lance Getsy, and their kicker, Joey Bain. That'll do it for this edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron. But you know where to find us each and every Wednesday, 7 p.m. We'll be right here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. But for now, we'll sign off. For Dan Flickinger, Sean Meyers saying thank you so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next Wednesday. It'll be right here, Westmoreland on the Gridiron.